Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So normally I talk about self-care, mental health, finding purpose, and other things that empower us to be our best selves, but I have been getting a lot of questions recently about my day job and what I do as a user experience designer, so I am here to answer some of those questions. A quick intro, just so we're all on the same page. What is user experience design or UX design? It's essentially the design and going through the design process of building digital things, digital apps, websites, software, and different digital tools. It is also commonly referred to as UX design, UI UX design, product design, interaction design. These are all terms that refer to the same thing. It is not graphic design. If you're interested in graphic design is a completely different field, and I can talk about that separately, but user experience design is not the same thing as graphic design. And when we say the term product design refers to the building of these digital products, not physical ones. So again, apps, software, websites, etc. And before I kind of dive into my own personal experiences, I also wanted to clear up a few misconceptions about the field. I feel like a lot of people are really attracted to this industry. It's a very kind of hot, new, like sexy type of industry. A lot of people are under the impression that we're sort of just designing pretty layouts for apps and websites and stuff like that, which is, yes, that is part of the job, but that is what we will refer to as like the UI design. The UI stands for user interface, and that is the front-facing thing that people will see. So that's like the pretty colors and the shapes and like the type styles and stuff that you see on a screen. UX is actually a little bit more analytical and technical. You often have to work a lot with research and data and code, and when you're a UI UX designer, you are expected to have both of these skill sets. You have to know how to make like pretty aesthetic user interfaces and cool looking things, but you also have to make things that are functional, they are practical, and you have to be able to work with engineering and understand their language. So my personal journey, how did I get into UX design? It is a whirlwind of a journey. I graduated from UCLA last year in 2019, and I have been working as a product designer since October of last year. Currently I work at Hulu, so I haven't really publicly been like, I work at Hulu, but you know, it's out there now, that's where I work. No, I did not study design, but we will get into that in a little bit. When I first went into college, I was largely doing a lot of graphic design and just teaching myself graphic design outside of my schoolwork for fun. I did like a marketing design internship early my freshman year, and that was sort of where I first started dabbling in design. I taught myself to use the Adobe suite and Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator, and was using that largely to make Snapchat filters for our campus, and that's sort of where I got started in graphic design specifically. I transitioned into UX and product design in like right before my junior year of college, because I kind of was not as into doing like graphic and branding design. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more analytical, a little bit more research and data driven. This is also where I switched my major and my minor. In my first years of college, I had switched my major like 5 times. I was like a business economics major, then a regular economics major, then a psychology major, and then a sociology major, and then after my sophomore year, I finally settled on communications, or not settled, I still had to like apply into the major and stuff like that. And so I majored in communications and I minored in a program called digital humanities. This is a fairly new program, I guess. It's not quite UX design, but it falls in the same realm. But through my minor, I ended up taking a few CS classes, as well as it offered a few UX design classes, and within my major I had also concentrated in computer-mediated communication. The CS classes that I took were Intro to C++, Python, and HTML, CSS. I find that HTML, CSS is the most useful in terms of doing like visual, like UI design. And again, I was also able to take UX design courses through my minor. Unfortunately, UCLA did not have a formal UX design program or like a human-computer interaction program or anything like that, so I kind of just had to make do with the courses that were available to me. And honestly, I get I get like pretty self-conscious about my design experience sometimes, because you're often working with a lot of people who went to these really amazing art schools or design schools, had these really incredible design backgrounds. And I did not study design. I sort of was very self-made, and you know, it's just, you know, you get hella imposter syndrome when all the people around you are like super talented designers who went to these great programs for design, and you're kind of just here, and I'm like, hey. But yeah, so that is something that I deal with a little bit. But to make up for that, I sort of pushed myself to get a variety of design experiences outside of my school curriculum. So how did I primarily learn about design then, since I did not study design? It was a grind. I read a ton. I read a bunch of different books about design, and I started doing a lot of research about design online. I was reading a ton of Medium articles, taking the like Lynda and Coursera courses on intro to design and intro to UX design. And then I learned primarily through internships and other experiences. So in my undergrad, it sounds ridiculous when I say this, but I ended up doing 8 internships in my undergrad because I'm like, I have anxiety and I'm crazy, and 4 of those 8 internships were specifically product design internships. Those internships I worked at an AI startup, and then I worked at Ticketmaster and 20th Century Fox, and then at Hulu, which is then where I got my return offer for a full-time job. Additionally, outside of my internship experience, I did a lot of different things on campus that were design oriented. I was the VP of product design for this school organization called Product Space, where we taught students and people on campus about product related jobs. I also was a design director for my dance team, and I did marketing design for my business frat, and I also did freelance design work and worked with clients on building websites and building brand guidelines and stuff like that, because you know, your girl needed money. And then what else did I do? Oh yeah, and then I also was involved in this school organization called Creative Labs, and I just participated and helped design a couple projects. So I had a lot of design experience, from like doing internships to being involved in a ton of stuff on campus, largely because I knew I was kind of at a slight disadvantage not being a design major. So that is the list of my experiences. Oh, and how did I get my current job? That is, I interned there, and then I got a return offer to go back. So that is my journey throughout the design world. I also wanted to share a few insights and honestly some kind of harsh realities for people who are getting started. Again, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about the industry, and people are really attracted to this new like hot industry, but there are definitely some things to be wary of. First, I think people should be aware that it's honestly pretty competitive industry right now because it is so new and so many people are trying to get into it. I've noticed that it's become very, very oversaturated, especially with new, younger designers. When you just go look at job listings for UX designers or product designers, like I want to say like 80% of them are always for like mid or like senior level designers who have many years of experience, and so that is just something to be wary of. The second thing is about compensation and salary. I think a lot of people are drawn to this career not only because it's like it seems creative and interesting, but because when you Google like the salary of a UX designer, it's like pretty sizable. It's like a really comfortable salary. But again, because this is still a very new industry, I have seen some horrendously low salaries for product and UX designers, especially at smaller companies. I find that I don't know, it's just like really frustrating because like some companies, because they don't have mature design teams, they don't have like senior design leadership, they will lowball you. That is, I don't know, it's just fucking rude. Like okay, and the last reality check is just kind of about the tech industry as a whole. Like when you work on tech products and stuff like that, I find my personal experience is that I will often get very existential thinking about my role. Some days I get very excited and I'm just like, wow, I'm working in this really cool industry. I work for a super cool company, like it's super new and exciting. But then some days you kind of take a step back and look at what are you doing in the long run, and a lot of the times is sort of like pushing pixels on a screen and like making tiny tweaks here or there and drawing rectangles on Sketch or whatever. And it is, yeah, it just, sometimes it can get very existential in the day-to-day. But that's not to say that it's still not like a really cool and interesting job. Those are just some insights that I have seen in my personal experience and some things that new designers I feel like should especially be wary of. But if you are still very committed to this type of job and you're willing to grind, then I have some tips now for getting started. Okay, so the first tip that I have for getting started is to really dive deep and understand the job requirements. And you can do this pretty easily by going through like job listings and looking at all the different skills that they're asking, what types of tools that they're using, what are the processes that they use, and understand those concepts and really hone in on those skills that these different listings are asking for. It's really important not just to understand the skills of your specific job or like the skills of like a UX designer and what they do in their day-to-day, but it's really important to understand like who are you often going to be working with too. So you're often working with engineers and product managers, and you need to understand what their type of role is too and how you can best work with those people. So once you go through a role or a few roles and understand like what exactly the day-to-day job entails, like what types of skills and things that they will require of you, then I would say it's really important to really hone in on your design fundamentals. And so this is where I think it's really helpful to take courses if you can. If you have access, if you're a student, to some kind of like design course or human computer interaction courses or CS courses, I find that those are extremely beneficial for sort of boosting your resume. And I personally I don't want to like condone or not condone this, but I don't really find like those sort of bootcamp type courses to be extremely helpful. I hear really mixed reviews from people who have taken them, and some people just aren't super sure if they're very valuable to them, especially because they're crazy expensive. So I would try to avoid those if you can, but if you're truly transitioning from a completely different industry and you need something to sort of like boost your credentials, then maybe that is a good path for you, or getting some sort of certification or going to some other type of program that allows you to get some of those design skills. So take courses if you're able to. Again, there are also a ton of online resources. And then understanding design process and practices in general. This is where researching and reading about design is really helpful. It's really easy to, if you're already interested in design, you kind of just get to learn about design things for fun. I feel like the sort of design industry like Bible is called The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. It's a really good and interesting read and sort of helps to introduce you into the lens of thinking like a designer. And my third tip for getting started is just to start making stuff. You cannot get a design job without having a portfolio of existing work, so it's really important that you hit the ground running and start making stuff. Your first couple of projects are probably gonna be like pretty bad. I know that my projects were, and that's completely okay, because if you're really committed to it, you will continue to refine your practice and you'll continue to get better at design. And I guess those are all of the things about my UX journey. I get a lot of questions about what my previous design experience was and stuff like that, so hopefully this helps to just kind of clear some of that up. I know I kind of had like a cynical moment of like, there's some harsh realities, but I do think it's a really cool industry, and I hope that more people continue to try and get into it, because the more people there are, I think the more that society and companies and our communities value design, and that is super awesome. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I guess feel free to drop some comments below. I'll try to answer as many of them as I can, and I'll try to be as honest as possible. And yeah, hopefully this is helpful. All right, see you next time. Bye!